Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Outschool Live, where we will do a deep dive on topics that will inspire you and your learners on their learning journey. If you're not familiar with Outschool, we are an online platform with over 140,000 live online classes, small group, and one-on-one tutoring for learners in almost any subject. And if you are new to Outschool and would like to try a class, we do have a new promo, Go Live 10 for $10 off of your first class. And today we are speaking with an educator, Daniel Fontana, who uses sports to educate learners and talking about sports. And I'm going to do something different today. I thought what we'd do is first, I sort of like to get a little nosy. So I'm going to, we're going to peek into Daniel's educator profile to try to find out a little bit more about him before we bring him on. So let's see if I can do this on the fly. Oh yes, here we go. So we have Daniel. We're checking out his educator profiles. You can have on the link that we'll share. Actually, Megan, would you mind sharing Daniel's link? And parents, you can follow along. We got Daniel. If you're like me, boom, I see video. I'm going to play video automatically. All right, the audio's not muted. And let's find out a little bit about Daniel.
My lessons fun, interesting, and
I'm going to start that at the beginning. Thank you for your patience.
Hi, my name is Daniel, and I love teaching. I'm a full-time Outschool teacher, and I do my best to make my lessons fun, interesting, and meaningful for all students. I've been an educator for over 9 years, and I'm a certified teacher in elementary and middle school, as well as special education. I also have my master's degree in those areas. All of my classes are sports themed, and my students can practice math and writing skills, as well as speaking and listening skills, all while discussing baseball, football, basketball, and other sports too. I hope to see your child in my classroom.
All right. So already I've got a lot of questions. We got some sports classes. He's got facial hair, so it's got to be all right. And all right, so we can see his upcoming classes here. We can also see about in the About Me section going down, and lots of different classes going, one-on-one tutoring, ADHD, autism, anxiety, small group classes, one-on-one tutoring, football talk, and a little further you can see lots of different classes, from video games to football to baseball, MLB show, to chat groups, and even classes by request open. I skipped over the one-on-one tutoring. And all right, so lots of different classes, all specifically around sports. All right, so I'm very excited to talk to Daniel, find out a little bit more about what's going on with all these sports classes. So please, let's welcome Daniel to the stage. Daniel, thank you very much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Thanks for the intro and for being nosy. I watched all of that, but thanks.
All right. So look at your profile. So you have a master's in education, yeah?
Yes, in special education and elementary teaching.
Okay. So you've been an elementary teacher before, like brick and mortar schools?
Yeah, I did that for a few years, and I did enjoy it. But I got to say, teaching on Outschool's my favorite job I've ever had. And, I feel like I hope I can do this forever, because I really do enjoy Outschool, as opposed to the brick and mortar setting. Yeah.
I'm intrigued because you have a very deep, say, academic background and teaching experience, fair to say.
Yep.
Yet you are teaching, like, all your classes are sports related.
Yeah, pretty much. I should update my video, because I know in the video I say all the classes are sports related. I do have some video game ones now that are just kind of general video games. But yeah, in general, like when I started on Outschool, I was just the sports guy basically, and that's all I did. So yeah, that's always been one of my favorite hobbies, and I still feel like I use a lot of my teaching background, education, and my bachelor's and my master's, and kind of put it all together. But the actual topics are not always so academic. We're not learning science or social studies all the time. A lot of times it's just social skills or conversational, or learning how to take your wait your turn, or collaborating with others, critical thinking. So we're still teaching skills in my classes, but it's not a typical classroom.
Okay, that was going to be my next question about like, well, what is the academic value of a sports chat class? Like, why would parents, sign up a learner for a sports chat class?
Mhm. Yeah, I think anytime where kids are talking about their interests, especially, it can be super beneficial because you're learning communication skills, which is going to impact you. And it's going to benefit you in any job you have one day, any hobby, any club you join. You're going to have to learn how to listen to others, how to talk to people. Even, we use the chat box in our class, so they're learning how to write messages that way. And then sports specifically has a lot of math. Every sport has numbers to it. There's scores, there's like uniform numbers, there's penalty yardage when you go back and forth. So they are learning, I think, the number sense that I learned when I was a kid from a lot of sports too. So I feel like it all kind of is baked into the cake, and then there's something positive that comes from it.
You said communication, and I mean, even for me, I'm trying to learn to communicate better and better and better. Yeah, and that is such an essential skill for learners, or I mean, for anyone to have, right? Oh, Miss Anna agrees. Yep, social skills definitely. Yeah, is that what they say? Sometimes like there's soft skills versus hard skills. Is communication a soft skill?
I guess it could fall into that category. Yeah. But yeah, there's almost no, like I was saying earlier, like there's no avenue of life where you're going to enter where you're like, oh, you know what? You actually don't need communication skills at that job or that hobby. No matter where you go, you're going to have to use it because you're never going to just be on an island unless you're Tom Hanks in Castaway. But yeah, you get the idea. And even then, I think he was talking to his volleyball, so he needed some communication skills for Wilson.
Yeah, talking to his volleyball, and he also had to build a fire to communicate to try to get help. Right?
That's true. Yeah, do whatever it takes.
Yeah, that desire for communication is an essential survival skill.
Yeah, true.
You're teaching survival skills.
Pretty much. I mean, it is under the life skills category on Outschool, so yeah, I guess so.
Oh, that's right. For parents who may not know, on Outschool, you can filter by not only age, but you can filter by category and specific skills and life skills. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Daniel, for reminding me that you can search up specific life skills classes because they are so essential. I mean, right, Daniel?
Yeah. And like, maybe I'm a little biased because almost all my classes are in the life skills category, but I feel like that's kind of the area that separates Outschool from everywhere else in the educational world, especially like the online educational world, because you can take the craziest classes on Outschool and it might be a life skills class, where you're learning about like how to raise a goat farm or like how to travel across the country or, the possibility of aliens existing. Like you're not going to find that on most places. So that's kind of what caught my eye when I discovered Outschool about 4 years ago. So I was like, wait, there's really a class about that. And then like there's 12 kids that are taking that class. Like, interesting. So yeah, that kind of made me realize maybe I can do like football talk or baseball talk because I hadn't really seen that anywhere else for kids.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're the first time I've heard about a class all specifically around sports talk. Shannon Chang, yes, Shannon, thanks for tuning in again. Good to see you. I love the math connection. My 6-year-old is always figuring out score differences and score possibilities when she watches football. Ooh, 6 years old, and what do you think about that, Daniel?
Yeah, it's interesting. I got to ask Shannon though, is that American football or soccer? Like most of the world uses the term football because I'm wondering on that one. But I know American football is one of my favorite sports to watch. And I used to do a sports math class, like specifically all math problems a couple years ago. And then haven't done that as much. Oh, and I see Shannon said NFL. So, okay, yeah. American football.
I'm going to guess the Broncos, right, Shannon?
Is Shannon from that area?
Used to be.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So, speaking of the Broncos, they just like broke a record, not a good record, a couple weeks ago because they gave up 70 points in a game, and that doesn't happen very often. That's more of a basketball type score. But anyway, that was like a huge topic of discussion in our football classes because we hadn't seen that, I think, in like over 50 years in the NFL. So then we were able to make comparisons to other games and say like, oh, that other team scored 35. That seemed like a lot of points, but that's only half of 70, which is like how many the Dolphins scored against the Broncos. So those kind of discussions happen even when it's not a math class, it's just sports. But I think they kind of learn math skills without even realizing that it's happening.
Okay, so I wanted to try to walk me through. So, okay, this record gets broken in real time.
Yeah.
You come to class and you're talking about this real thing that happened, like just, maybe the day before, and you say, all right, this scores 70 points. It was like twice as much as this other team that happened. How does that conversation, like, do you take it and be like, okay, now I'm going to teach this fundamental math skill? Or I guess I'm curious, how does it evolve?
Yeah, a lot of times it's kind of indirect. And sometimes I'll do it directly, but try to be subtle about it because I think some kids might say, oh, we're doing math in class. Like maybe that's almost a little bit of a red flag in their minds, but you can still learn math without even knowing it. Like,
Don't try to teach me. Don't try to teach me, man. I'm here to talk about sports.
My fun class after school. Like I already did math today. Or sometimes I will be direct, like sometimes kids will be able to appreciate, oh, I actually learned something like math related, or, I'll teach them like different spelling or grammar things that come up through a sport. So yeah, it kind of depends. With that one, I think they were able to come to that realization on their own. Like we just looked at all the scores for the week, and I give them time in the beginning of class, which is just a totally open forum, and I'll say, does anyone have any football thoughts? And they can talk about anything. Sometimes they'll say, oh, I just played a flag football game at my school, or they'll say, oh, I was watching this game, or they'll say, I have nothing to say at all, and they'll just kind of listen. But yeah, with that specific one, I think they noticed it because they've probably been hearing about it all week at home. And then it was kind of easy to just jump into that because, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic teaching about current events because, with sports, things are happening every day. Even in the off season, someone gets treated. So I can kind of make an estimate. All right, what are they going to want to talk about this week? And then go from there. But yeah, every group is different too, because I'll have one football class where they want to talk about that 70-point game and another one where it's maybe not the most important thing to them that week. So yeah, it kind of depends.
We got a question from Miss Anna. Can you suggest some ways I can use sports? My son likes to help him use sports. My son likes to help him learn academic skills he may be struggling with.
Yeah, definitely. I think almost anything can be kind of twisted and turned into a student's interest. So whether it's sports or like video games or cooking or traveling, you can kind of, like, let's say you're doing math, you can make a word problem about that specific topic. Or if you're learning how to, write complete sentences, instead of just saying, let's make sentences with these vocab words, it's like, all right, let's make football sentences, or like, let's make Pokemon sentences. And, now instead of the subject being someone's name, it's going to be Pikachu because that's what they're into. So yeah, just trying to like twist and turn regular or traditional activities into their interests. I think it's always possible. It just sometimes takes a little bit of brainstorming.
I don't know about, in my experience, I have one learner who, as soon as they feel like I'm trying to like insert any like, oh yeah, how many, all right, how many eggs is that? If I take away this many eggs, there's going to be like, it's sort of like, no, you don't teach me. Versus another learner will be like, oh yeah, no problem. It's this. And they'll sway with it. Do you find that difference among your learners?
Yeah, sometimes they'll say, is this math class? Like, I thought this was football class or something. But I think anytime you can prove to the learner that what they're learning is actually going to be useful to them in real life, it often can kind of change their mind on it, where then it's a little bit more fun because they realize it has a purpose. It doesn't always. When I was in high school, I had an algebra teacher, and I remember kids were saying, "But when are we going to actually use algebra in the classroom?" And he would say, "Well, look at me, I'm an algebra teacher, and like I'm using it," and that wasn't really convincing. Yeah, we were kind of like, all right, but I don't think I'm going to be an algebra teacher. Like there were a lot of better examples I think he could have used where like you actually use that, like, paying my rent. And sometimes I'm like, oh wait, I have to do this and that, and figure it out kind of with an algebraic mindset. So yeah, just kind of connecting the learning to real life can often get a kid more invested in it.
Yeah, especially if it interests them. Like, I mean, I don't know. You could be like, I assume. All right, this shows you how much I follow sports, but I assume that fantasy leagues require a lot of math.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep. In fact, I have a fantasy football class on Outschool once a week too, and it's actually like one of my favorite classes to teach right now. But yeah, it's a lot of math, and just the other day when I was teaching it, I play along with the kids. We do like a weekly draft where we pick players, and I won this week. They were very upset that the teacher beat them, but I beat them just by a couple points, and I was able to say, "Oh, do you guys remember like that one touchdown catch that Travis Kelce had where he like reached over? That was worth 6 points, and I only won by 4 points. So like that was the difference, because if I didn't get that, then Johnny would have won, whatever." So yeah, there's a lot of fantasy football talk in our classes too.
Miss Polly is asking, or Mrs. Polly, how many different sports do you talk about? Which ones are your own favorite? We sort of just answered. And fantasy teams. Yep. Great minds think alike.
So yeah, football is my favorite sport to watch, but baseball has always kind of been they call it America's pastime. It's kind of true for me too. It's a little more of a chill sport than football, and they do baseball games pretty much every day during the season, whereas football is once a week. So I kind of like that consistency. But yeah, we talk about pretty much every sport in my class. I try to break them down. Like when I first started teaching on Outschool, I thought, should I just do general sports talk? Like everybody just come and you could talk about any sport you want. But I realized that was a little too broad. So I started doing like basketball talk, football talk, baseball, and just narrowing it down in that sense. But every once in a while, sometimes like yesterday in baseball talk, a kid was talking about hockey because that season's starting, or basketball. So there's some overlap, and it can still work in the class.
That reminds me of some of the things that we've done with the learner community when we were first starting. For families who don't know, in learner community, we have free events and free classes and experiences for learners, and usually very interest-based. And I found this is early days when I was starting getting to know learners, but they really like to be able to choose their own subjects and just talk about it. And I would just watch that, say, all right, what subjects do you want to talk about? And they'd split up into their different groups of what they wanted to talk about. And when I'd peek in or eavesdrop on their conversation, like, oh man, they're going really in depth. They're talking about, between the social skills or academic skills, then they're talking about math, about this particular subject, or just all this academic learning. So I really like that you've tapped into that there's so much learning to do when a kid is interested in a topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's a lot of stigma that comes with that. I remember one of the previous interviews that you were doing where you guys were kind of talking about, like video games might have a stigma attached to them. And I think a lot of people will assume you can't really learn stuff from a video game, or like, oh yeah, if you play a sport, that's really just for like physical activity. It's not going to benefit you in any way other than physical. You shouldn't just watch football. You have to be like playing outside or doing something. But there's so many benefits that come from it, and just kind of showing a kid that it's okay to be interested in whatever they're interested in, I think is a huge self-esteem boost. Where as kids get older, they kind of realize like, oh yeah, I don't have to get shamed for my hobbies. Like, oh, I can meet other people who like what I like. Just one quick story that kind of goes with what I'm saying is, I had a student in Australia, and he was a huge fan of the NFL, which is mostly like an American sport. Like all the teams play in America, and in Australia, he didn't have any friends that also liked American football. He's like, they all play cricket, or they like rugby or soccer. So he would actually wake up, I think, at 6:30 a.m. to do our group class, because here it was, I forget the time, but like maybe 3:30 p.m. or something. And he would get up first thing in the morning because he really wanted to talk with his friends in the class. And he did that for like, I think, a full year. And it was just worth it for him. So it kind of shows you like how much a child might crave that conversation, that connection with other kids like them, that he was willing to wake up that early, like on a weekend, to do our class. So yeah, I feel like that's what's cool about Outschool is, he couldn't really get that in his area.
Yeah, it can offer a social consistency for no matter where you go. I really like that insight. Miss Anna's asking, do you have suggestions on how we can find a tutor or teacher that could be a good fit for kids? So yeah, what are your suggestions for families who? Well, actually, I want to back that question up first. So you've done one-on-one tutoring in a way that that was a new way for me for thinking of sort of using it to bring them into the group. I guess I usually think of like, oh, everybody comes in a group and then the best, someone who's really shows promise in this area gets one-on-one tutoring, but you've gone a little opposite way. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of students who their families might feel they're not necessarily ready to join a group class, and they'll build up to that through tutoring. It's a totally different experience in a one-on-one class compared to a group class. I'm sure people can vouch for that. If you've been on like a one-on-one interview or you've had 7 people interviewing you, it's a little bit more intimidating at times. So anyway, yeah, I've had some families contact me and say like, I saw you do football talk with like 10 kids, but can we do it just one-on-one and see how we like it? And then they'll make an assessment after that. So yeah, it kind of goes both ways, where some people will kind of do what you were saying, where they'll start with the group class and then say, oh, let's do tutoring also, or let's do tutoring instead. But it can go the other way too, especially for students who are neurodiverse, where it can be extra overwhelming to have, a huge setting in a classroom, especially online.
What do you recommend? So back to Miss Anna's question, what do you recommend for parents who are looking for tutors? Like what kind of things would you recommend they look out for?
Yeah, well, I think Outschool makes it pretty easy. So it can be overwhelming at first because I think there are over 10,000 teachers on Outschool. I know it's in the thousands. So you might be like, how am I going to find the one for my student when there's like so many thousand? Like, it's a lot to think about. But they have a lot of filters on the website. So you might say, okay, I'm at like 10,000 teachers, but let me sort by one-on-one. Okay, now it's down to like 3,000 or 4,000, whatever. Now we can only do Tuesday mornings. And then, okay, we want to do this specific, grade level and social studies. Well, now we're down to like 30 teachers. And then you can sort through those reviews, because I think that's a great way to get a feel for a teacher, to see what other parents have said about them. And then just like you guys, Fernando was being nosy and watching my profile before I came in. But you can see the video from the teacher. You can even communicate with them, and you don't have to buy a class to talk with a teacher on Outschool. You can send them a message as long as you have an account and say, I'm thinking about tutoring with you, and start the conversation. So yeah, all those things I think can narrow it down, where you're like, now I have maybe 3 options that my kid is excited about trying, and then you can give them a shot. But yeah, I would use the filter system on Outschool, and then don't be afraid to communicate with the teachers.
Yeah, and I totally drifted by that. I want to show that too, that there's so you can send a message right there to the educators, which is, I think, is super awesome. I think if I would recommend to parents to definitely reach out and ask all the questions to the educators. I found, and especially Daniel has offered to reach out to them, that educators like to share, and they like to share their knowledge. And anytime I've reached out to an educator, they've been super helpful and a great resource, even before signing up for a class.
Yeah, I would agree. I think at least my mindset is, as an Outschool teacher, I do this full time. So if Outschool is doing well in general, that helps me. So of course I'm even incentivized to, help answer someone's question. Even if they don't book a class with me, I still want to help out and kind of make Outschool a better place in general. So yeah, don't hesitate. We're used to questions because we're teachers. So yeah, we're kind of been there, done that.
I definitely want to outshout the work of the educator community and some of my colleagues as well. The educator community on Outschools, there's a very tight-knit educator community that they will also, if they don't have a class for you, they will happily refer you to another educator that they know can rock out these particular subject areas. So I do want to, again, encourage families, if you've never tried Outschool, or if you're looking for the right class, comment on this thread or reach out to the educators on their profile. The link's right there. You can reach out to Daniel. If you're new to Outschool, that link will automatically populate a promo code for $10 off of your first class with hopefully Daniel or another educator on the platform that might work for you. We're coming up at the half-hour mark, Daniel, so I want to thank you very much for your time. If there's any last-minute questions, feel free, parents, to send those through. But thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us here on Outschool Live. Are there any last things that we didn't cover or didn't mention that you would like to share with parents and caregivers?
Yeah, I'll just kind of give my final thoughts. So I was thinking when I first heard about Outschool, about 4 years ago, I was kind of almost skeptical because it seemed too good to be true. As both a teacher and for parents, I'm not a parent myself, but just thinking like, okay, this is for real. I was a homeschooled student when I was a kid, and every couple weeks I'll be talking to my mom about something because she was my homeschool teacher as a kid, and she's like, oh, I wish they had Outschool when you were a kid. She's like, we would have had you guys in so many classes. She's like, it would have made my life so much easier. And I'm like, yeah, I wish it was around too. But the moral of the story is Outschool really can be a game changer. And it really is awesome. And I'm not just saying that because I teach on there. I just feel like the team on Outschool and all the teachers, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just kind of like cookie cutter, where it's like some big corporation and you just churn out lessons and everyone gets the same thing. Everything can be kind of individualized for your learner. If you want that tutoring session on a Saturday morning to learn Spanish at 4 a.m. Pacific time because you live in a different country, like there's probably that option on there. And if not, you can even request that to certain teachers and say, by the way, I know you specialize in math. Would you mind like teaching my learner in science too? And a lot of teachers will say, oh yeah, I actually have like a science certification and I can do that. So yeah, just give it a shot. I would say if you're kind of on the fence with Outschool, I would at least look into it.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, right? Every learner is unique and they will have their unique style of learning. And at Outschool, there is a unique educator who can make that match for you. And just as Rikan was asking about looking for tutoring classes, I want to encourage Rikan to continue keeping an eye on that thread, because we'll have our social team, Megan and Sarah, reach out to you to find out more about your learner on these threads, and they can give personalized recommendations for classes. So if anyone watching has any questions about what kind of tutoring class might be right for me and my learner, go ahead and reach out on this thread, and our social team will reach out for personalized recommendations. Again, you can DM any of the Outschool channels on Facebook, social media, Instagram, etc., TikTok, all that good stuff. But with that being said, Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, parents and educators, for joining us. Thank you, Megan, Caption Master. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on Outschool Live. And we look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be talking Greek mythology with Johnny Walker. All right, thanks so much, Daniel.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.